Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
Standing at the reading of the will, the husband could barely suppress a smile. But as soon as applause sounded behind him, he turned pale when he saw Camila Merced loved dropping by this charming little jewelry shop, 5 steps down, a small basement, and there, pure magic. An elderly, sophisticated salesman, not some airhead girl with little understanding of jewelry's finer points, greeted her with displays filled with items on black and burgundy velvet. It was impossible to resist buying something. The handsome consultant with the appearance of a Scandinavian professor always knew what to offer his regular client. He smiled now, meeting her at the counter. "You came just in time, my dear. Yesterday, I received new elite jewelry. It's not mass-produced, but handcrafted. This is the kind of piece where diamonds and emeralds pale in comparison. Look at how these seemingly simple trinkets showcase semi-precious stones. See how the jewelry alloy, made to look like silver, accentuates them. It's simply fantastic. Such charm." Camila delighted in holding a pendant with amethysts in her palm, running her fingers over the surface of a coal-black agate ring, and admiring the blue of a lapis lazuli that crowned a pendant on a long chain. And then, suddenly, she saw the set. Earrings, a pendant, and an elegant ring. Turquoise in a silver setting. They matched Camila's blue eyes flawlessly. And this stone, in particular, appealed to her. The vibrant shades of sky and sea, with black flecks, were considered an amulet by connoisseurs. Camila had read somewhere about turquoise's unique property: if trouble was near, the stone darkened, and if everything was fine, it became a clear, light blue. How true this information was, she didn't know. There hadn't been any significant misfortunes in her life. The turquoise pendant and bracelet she already owned had never needed to darken. After paying for the jewelry, Camila happily rushed home. Her husband, Salomon, had hinted the day before that for their 3rd wedding anniversary, he had prepared an unusual surprise for his beloved wife. Tonight, she would find out what it could possibly be. To herself, Camila called her second husband her conscious choice. And why not? A businesswoman needed to be fully aware of what was going on around her. Fidel Benavente, her first love and husband, was a foolish choice. When the time came during her college years to find a steady partner, she resigned herself to the necessity and acted. Sporty, muscular, and not very bright, Fidel was the perfect candidate for a lover. Camila barely had time to drop her bag on the table and kick off her shoes before she found herself in the bedroom. After their passionate interlude, they would head to the kitchen to cook dinner together. Then, Fidel would zone out in front of the computer, while she hurried back to her notes. With her mathematical mind, Camila breezed through numbers like a squirrel cracking nuts. No one in the entire economics faculty could compare. Fidel barely graduated from his automotive and road engineering institute. For the longest time, Camila couldn't even get him to explain what exactly his major was. Would he be dealing with roads or cars? Her husband would gaze at her with love and desire, nodding at the table where he placed yet another small bouquet of flowers in a vase. He was full of chivalry and romance. And once again, he would carry her to the bedroom. Within minutes, it no longer mattered to her what profession her dear husband had chosen or whether he would graduate. Time would tell. In love and peaceful harmony, a year passed. 2 carefree students were nearing the light at the end of their academic tunnel when Camila became pregnant. That's when their idyllic life came to an abrupt halt. Morning sickness, constant fatigue, mood swings, Camila transformed from a mild-mannered wife into a fury. Her hormones danced on the grave of her stellar grades. The winter semester was in jeopardy. Pregnancy was anything but interesting for Camila. The doctors at the clinic shrugged, repeatedly saying that all her tests showed nothing abnormal. Yet she felt awful, both physically and emotionally. Fidel grew bored as his young wife refused to join him in the bedroom under any circumstances. Instead, she craved strange combinations of food: lemons, pickled herring with raw onions, and chocolate. Fidel grew tired of constantly running to the supermarket to fulfill her ever-changing cravings. By the 6th month of pregnancy, Fidel began to lose his perfect husband status. Without much thought, he sought solace elsewhere. Or rather, in the arms of his female classmates, who weren't too concerned with questions of morality. Our lecture buddy's wife is expecting a baby. So what? We're not dragging him to the altar. A couple of hours of fun in the dorm isn't a crime. It's hard to resist when a hottie like him is getting attention. As usual, Camila was the last to learn about her husband's escapades. By that time, she had been forced to take an academic leave due to health reasons. An ultrasound revealed that she was carrying a girl. The gynecologist smiled and delivered the verdict. Such a little one, but already fighting for control over your body. That's why you're having such strong symptoms. Normally, moms forget about morning sickness at this stage, but here you are, still running to the toilet. Your daughter's going to be born with quite the personality. Mark my words. Exhausted from her pregnancy, Camila decided to throw a small family celebration, but her husband was persistently ignoring her calls. Without much thought, she took a taxi to surprise him. However, at the institute, everyone avoided her questions about Fidel's whereabouts. Sensing something was wrong, Camila tracked down one of Fidel's close friends, cornered him, and forced him to tell the truth. The guy didn't resist for long. He confessed that Fidel, still in class, had run off to the dorm with red-haired Francisca. Camila knew her husband all too well. They certainly weren't going off to read Shakespeare. Suddenly, she felt disgusted, sickened, and utterly heartbroken. But she was not one to shy away from action. By evening, Fidel's things were neatly packed and waiting by the door of their rented apartment. No drama, no accusations, no attempts to mend things, no last chances. Camila filed for divorce in an instant, explaining firmly to her parents. Someone who betrays you once will do it again. And this was only our first family challenge. What should I expect from him in the future? The most amusing thing about this whole family story was that Fidel didn't mind disappearing from Camila's life. He had no shortage of admirers. He easily got his dorm room back and resumed his bachelor life. Having been a husband for a short time, he gained some experience and vowed never to fall into that trap again. The situation with alimony turned out to be unusual as well. Fidel's parents owned some real estate, a warehouse in the city center that they had bought by chance but hadn't fully developed. Its main advantage was its prime location, just off the main avenue. This warehouse was offered to Camila as part of the settlement. Fidel's mother made her stance very clear. Camila, you know, my husband and I aren't wealthy. This old, rundown building came to us by chance. Now it can serve you and our granddaughter. You won't get much financial help from Fidel anytime soon. But you're smart, you'll find a way to make use of this property. From then on, Camila's life rolled along the tracks of fate, without Fidel and without his parents. Her would-be in-laws seemed to believe that with the transfer of the warehouse, their role in raising their granddaughter was finished. Things weren't much better with Camila's own parents. They lived 3 hours away from the city where she studied, tied to their land and garden with near-fanatical devotion. Camila couldn't bring herself to ask them for more help. After all, throughout her studies, they had paid for her rented apartment, regularly brought groceries to the city, and quietly fed Fidel along with her. The balcony was always stocked with vegetables, and the pantry was lined with jars of homemade preserves. Camila would raise her daughter on her own. After Linda was born, life became a blur, like scenes from a film. What Camila remembered most were the little details: her baby sleeping in the crib, textbooks, an alarm clock, the washing machine in the bathroom, and baby food. The young mother said goodbye to her dream of graduating with top marks. She transferred to the part-time program and managed to persuade her neighbor to let her take over her cleaning job in the building. Along with the groceries her parents brought, her salary was just enough to get by. Then, like a bolt from the blue, came a letter from the city administration. Camila was invited to an appointment in room number 5 for a discussion she didn't quite understand. Shrugging, she went, not knowing she was about to meet her future. Camila had always been far removed from any dealings with the city government. Room 5 turned out to be a meeting hall where she found herself alongside several other property owners with real estate in the city center. The issue on the table was significant. The city was planning to build a large entertainment complex in the heart of downtown, complete with a green park and a state-of-the-art water park. The warehouses and lots owned by the attendees were to be purchased. There were no fairy tales of benevolent wizards here. Nobody was going to be charitable. Camila was offered a very decent sum, far beyond anything she had ever dreamed of, for her warehouse. And just like that, one fine day, she woke up not in a tiny rented apartment, but in her own cozy house and as the owner of her own cleaning company. Her business was built through hard work. In the literal sense, Camila completed the first orders for cleaning apartments and offices alongside her neighbor. She earned her daily bread with her own hands. It took 7 years for Camila's company to become a well-known business in the city. By then, Linda was already in first grade. Camila barely saw her daughter, who was mostly cared for by nannies while Camila worked to get her business off the ground. It was a tough period, one where she had to choose between family and work. Camila chose the latter. She couldn't balance both. Camila skillfully parked her car next to the clothing boutique. The turquoise jewelry set was still on her mind. She wanted to look stunning for Salomon on their wedding anniversary. She loved her second husband. Well-groomed and looking magnificent, she was 8 years older than him. Because of this, there was something especially nurturing in her love, even a bit protective. Thankfully, Salomon didn't know that Camila secretly referred to him as her child and her boy. He considered himself fully grown. He had planned some sort of exotic surprise for their anniversary. The only question was, whose money would pay for this fantastic celebration if he took her to a restaurant? Her Salomon wasn't a gold digger in the full sense of the word. As a lawyer for a small private company, he certainly couldn't out-earn his wife, the owner of a network of 20 cleaning service locations. Trying to keep pace with a woman growing her business at such a rate was no easy task. Camila picked out a beautiful floor-length evening gown and grabbed a new pair of shoes as well, no holding back. Linda was in her second year at a boarding school in Switzerland, and Camila and Salomon often took short trips to Europe, skiing in the Alps in winter, France in the summer. But these trips were never longer than 3 to 4 days, as Camila couldn't afford extended leisure. She worked tirelessly to grow her wealth. The only luxury she indulged in was the opulent design of their home, which she wanted to be a place of comfort and joy. No flashy colors, just simplicity, coziness, and ease. Camila had built her own little paradise, inch by inch, a home where she could finally be herself. Here, she shed the mask of coldness and respectability, transforming into a simple woman in comfy loungewear and fluffy slippers with pom-poms. Salomon was always charmed by those slippers. It was an adorable quirk of Camila's that he lovingly teased her about. All her house slippers were playful and cute, much like her silk pajamas with embroidered details or t-shirts featuring animal prints. Salomon had a soft spot for her sandy-colored shirt with a cute hamster on the front. Whenever Camila wanted something from him, she'd greet him at home wearing that t-shirt, knowing it warmed his heart. She had never had any complaints about Salomon, nor did she now. She never doubted him. Other than their age gap and his relative youth, he was an ideal husband. They had met on a ski resort, purely by chance, without the interference of friends or matchmakers. Camila had always loved the thrill of skiing, the chill in the air, the speed, and she preferred challenging slopes. Salomon, on the other hand, was a beginner. How he ended up on a difficult red trail with obstacles was anyone's guess. He would have been better off sticking to the easier blue or green lines. It was fortunate Camila hadn't decided to take the black diamond slope that day. Salomon, as they say in skiing, lost control. When Camila slowed down, she saw 2 legs sticking awkwardly out of a snowbank, with a bright orange ski cap lying nearby. After confirming that the amateur skier was unharmed, she helped him up and accompanied him for the rest of the descent. They laughed their way into a nearby bar, where they discovered a shared love for spicy, hot mulled wine. Later came a long dinner and deep conversations. They felt so comfortable together, as if they had known each other for years. 2 days later, still at the same resort, Camila and Salomon became close. It felt like a perfect match. Salomon even canceled his flight home, leaving behind his friends to spend a few more days in Italy with her. What really won Camila over was his refusal to let her help with any financial arrangements. She took it as a good sign, and it only strengthened the connection that they were both from the same city. At the time, Salomon was in his final year of law school, while Camila was already the owner of a constellation of small companies under a unified service brand. Deep into her business, she had no time for romance or love. Occasionally, she entertained short, uncomplicated relationships, but she always quickly lost interest in the men. She often laughed about this later with Linda's nanny, with whom she had unexpectedly become close friends. My fiancé either hasn't been born yet or is still in school. Once I settle all my financial matters, I'll marry someone young and fresh, Camila used to joke. It turned out she was spot on. Salomon was exactly that kind of man, still untainted by money or women, despite his good looks. He was flexible and moldable, someone she could shape however she liked. Plus, Salomon was well on his way to getting a solid education. Who wouldn't want a sharp lawyer like him in their company? From the moment they met, Camila somehow instinctively trusted him. He seemed so familiar, so easy to understand. Salomon never questioned their age gap and even joked that he thought they were the same age. When he saw her house, he didn't bat an eye. After they got married, he even suggested renting an apartment downtown, explaining that he didn't want to feel like he was just living off his wife. All these little quirks of his made Camila admire him even more. She felt herself dissolving into this man, trusting him as she trusted herself. After Salomon graduated, he surprised her again. He found a job on his own and refused to join her business, declaring his right as a man to build his career with his own mind and abilities. They had been married for almost 3 years, and no one could come close to challenging the strength of their family. So today, Camila wasn't just driving home, she was flying, breaking traffic rules twice along the way. There was no one at the intersection, so why wait for the green light? After they got married and he finished his degree, Salomon reluctantly agreed to move into Camila's mansion. Her daughter had just gone abroad to study, so now it was just the two of them, except for the cook and housekeeper who came during the day. Camila and Salomon were usually home only late in the evenings, both busy with work during the day. But after all the hustle and stress, their home became their own little universe. They always had something to talk about, something to do, ways to unwind and relax together. If anyone claimed that marital bliss didn't exist, Camila and Salomon would have argued against it without hesitation. As she pulled into the driveway, Camila noticed the lights on in the living room and their bedroom. Her heart immediately warmed. Salomon was probably in the wardrobe, picking out something for their evening. She wondered where he planned to take her. She would have been just as happy staying home, just the two of them, with candles, a bottle of champagne, and a romantic setting. Camila always made sure Salomon felt like the head of the household. She was ready to let him decide how they would celebrate their anniversary tonight. Salomon greeted her at the top of the stairs and led her to their bedroom, where the bed was scattered with colorful rose petals. Noticing the joy in her eyes, he smiled and said, "This isn't the main surprise, my love. See that big envelope on the nightstand? Go ahead, open it." Eagerly, Camila followed his instructions. Inside the thick pink envelope was a travel package for two to a ski resort, her dream trip. She had always wanted to ski the trails in Sweden, to soak in all the natural beauty. Some seasoned skiers among her friends had once told her that the snow there was special, sparkling in the sun, fluffy, soft. Skiing on it was pure bliss. Camila threw her arms around her husband, overwhelmed with joy. "How did you know that I was so exhausted from work? That I was thinking we needed a change of scenery? I kept imagining wild landscapes, with less technology and more nature," Camila asked. Salomon kissed her on the temple and smiled as he replied, "I peeked into your dreams, my love. I saw how brave you are in the mornings when you're getting ready for work, and how those little lines of weariness form on your face in the evenings. I'm so happy I can give you at least this tiny gift. Can you imagine? It's already April outside, but the slopes still have thick snow. We have only 3 days to pack. I've already booked our flight for Friday. The hotel Salomon had reserved was nestled at the foot of a mountain. Camila immediately fell in love with everything: the well-equipped ski pass system with a couple dozen lifts, the collection of cozy restaurants and cafes scattered in the most unexpected places on the slopes, and the breathtaking scenery. On their first day, she noticed a sign outside one of the restaurants announcing an upcoming festival. The highlight of the event was going to be a fun, colorful descent down the snowy slopes in bathing suits. The poster also teased the arrival of some famous celebrities. Over lunch, Camila laughed. "Salomon, can you imagine a parade of people skiing in swimsuits? There must be some real daredevils out there willing to participate in such a spectacle." Her husband suddenly turned serious. "With a flawless figure like yours, darling, I'd be incredibly proud to see you on the slopes during such a wild event. And imagine how I'd warm you up in our room afterward." Camila paused, thinking. She had always been adventurous. How else could she have built her successful business from the ground up? And what if she really did ski in a bikini? It would be an unforgettable experience, full of adrenaline and excitement. Half an hour later, Camila was already adding her name to the list of brave participants willing to ski down the snow-covered slopes in a bikini. Salomon didn't try to talk her out of it. He knew it would be useless. That evening, they discussed the upcoming adventure over dinner. Camila, flushed with excitement from the lively conversation, suddenly glanced to the side and froze. A broad-shouldered man with piercing eyes was staring at her intently. She felt a shiver, but brushed it off, quickly forgetting the strange stranger. Ismael Martel didn't like this job. Something felt off from the very beginning. He knew well that a professional shouldn't feel anything, but this time, something was unsettling, and that was unusual for him. He never dealt with clients directly. Everything went through an agency that found people eager to get rid of someone. Surprisingly, there were plenty of people willing to settle a score in such a cruel way. Ismael only took on the jobs he considered justified, where such vengeance seemed fair. This line of work was mysterious to the outside world, with its own laws and rules. A Robin Hood-type assassin wasn't celebrated here, but he wasn't ostracized either. Everyone who worked in this business had their own grievances with society. But it wasn't the norm to delve into the details. Ismael's advantage was his flawless track record, which earned him the most delicate assignments. The moral underbelly of his profession was grim. Many of his clients were the kind of people who should have been victims themselves. The agency never even brought such cases to him. They knew that before carrying out any verdict, he would want to uncover the entire story, motives, backstory, and hidden details. He worked alone, viewing himself as a sort of vigilante, a cleaner of cities who only eliminated those who had escaped rightful punishment by hiding behind the innocence of others. Ismael's methods were far more sophisticated than simple bullet or knife wounds. He never shared his trade secrets, but it was clear that even the most seasoned forensic examiners struggled to determine how the body on their autopsy table had met its end. He left no obvious traces on the victims. The contract on Camila arrived like any other, a small file on his computer. Woman, 32 years old, owner of a chain of cleaning companies. No details on who she had crossed were provided. Ismael began gathering a dossier on her, but found nothing even remotely criminal. Why was she a target? He couldn't find a single clue, so he headed north to observe his intended victim. The answers to all of Ismael's questions were hidden in the mind of Salomon. No one would have ever guessed that behind the mask of a loving husband was a calculating monster who despised his wife, envying her obvious success. Only naive souls, like his trusting wife, would believe that their meeting in Italy had been a coincidence. Far from it. Salomon had planned and meticulously staged this act from all sides. He had been an expert skier for years. Pretending to be an amateur on the slopes was an easy feat for a smooth and manipulative young man. Salomon's first experience as a parasitic companion to an older woman came when he was vacationing with his parents by the sea, where he met a bored, wealthy 30-year-old socialite. After returning home, he kept her interested for over a year. The result was quite favorable. He dressed in style, developed a taste for expensive trinkets like watches and jewelry. His parents never questioned where their son got the money. They assumed he was working part-time somewhere and didn't pry. Why had it all gone so smoothly? It was simple. Salomon was a handsome guy, looking much older than his years. Well-read and articulate, he had a way with words. Women were drawn to such suitors, someone they could show off in public without embarrassment. When it came to money, older women knew it was just a matter of time. A young man like him would soon settle into the adult world. In reality, Salomon moved from one generous lover to another, often even being recommended from one to the next. Salomon enrolled in university in the regional capital on his own, though not without the help of one of his admirers. With the change of city came a change of social circle, and he severed all ties with his former lovers. By this time, his bank account had accumulated a modest sum. His financial needs were covered, allowing him to seek a more permanent relationship, one that would give him not just crumbs from the table, but the entire fortune of his partner. A year later, Camila caught his eye. He began studying her life, her habits, preferences, and even followed her to a ski resort to learn in detail how she liked to unwind and relax. At that time, as Camila sat in the bar with her friend in the evenings, she barely noticed the young man, Salomon. But Salomon had already started meticulously planning his next move. And he executed his scheme brilliantly. Ismael closed the folder containing the information on Salomon. His intuition had been right. The root of the problem wasn't the woman. The threat of treachery, as he suspected, led directly to Camila's husband. Now, the professional had no doubts. The man behind the hit was none other than Salomon himself. What could have driven Salomon to want Camila out of his life? Was it a mistress, lingering grudges, jealousy? How had this woman, in 3 years, failed to see the true nature of the man living beside her? She didn't seem like a fool. But love can blind even the sharpest minds. This situation made Ismael pause, something that had never happened to him before. There was something about Camila, a kind of innocence, a vulnerability, that Ismael couldn't reconcile with the cold reality of the contract. Why had they chosen him, knowing his internal principles? What was the twist in this story? Meanwhile, Salomon and Camila were at a store picking out a swimsuit for the contest. She insisted that a red and black ensemble would stand out the most against the snow and skis, but Salomon argued that the black and turquoise version would look stunning with her new jewelry. His reasoning convinced her. Later, back in their hotel room, when she tried on the swimsuit with the turquoise earrings, it became clear her breathtaking look was complete. Camila wasn't afraid of the cold. She had long practiced cold showers, winter and summer alike. She could handle the temperature contrast. But today, she couldn't shake the feeling that this competition would change something in her life. She would emerge from it a queen, a champion, victorious over whatever challenges lay ahead. The night before the big day, neither Camila nor Salomon stayed up long at dinner. Both were on edge. Camila was anxious about whether she would be able to complete the steep downhill run. Salomon, on the other hand, could feel in his gut that his dream was about to come true. He would soon have full control of his rich wife's assets and finally rid himself of those irritating pom-pom slippers that cluttered the house. He had placed all his bets on this. And winners aren't judged. Who would ever suspect that Camila's death would have anything to do with him, the grieving, loving husband? He was well versed in wearing masks of all kinds. Ismael, however, wasted no time. Within hours, he devised an intricate plan for the assignment. Only, his superiors didn't need to know about his clever switcheroo. In his version of events, Camila wouldn't be the final victim. Salomon would. And no threats or consequences from the higher-ups could make him change his mind. He was an honest man at heart. His colleagues, who often teased him, would say, "Ismael, forget those silly dreams of yours about good defeating evil. Those slogans are for poor fools. They have nothing else to live by but enthusiasm. Remember, old friend, money rules this world. Whoever pays the most gets the prize. As a young lieutenant, Ismael had listened to his older colleagues but never agreed with them. Why had he even bothered going to the police academy, absorbing an entirely different set of rules? To him, evil had to be punished. This was an axiom. But reality often proved more complicated. Obvious criminals would somehow evade responsibility, while minor offenders, those who slipped just once, would end up behind bars for years. On the day that divided Ismael's life into before and after, he was on patrol duty with one of the patrol service groups. When a report came in about a clearly drunk driver speeding down the central street, running over pedestrians in the process, they couldn't believe their ears. The agile and athletic Ismael was the first to arrive near the spot where the offender had finally stopped. He pulled the scoundrel out of the car and hit him hard on the head, knocking him out to finally make him stop. It worked. While the group called for backup to deal with all the victims, the offended drunk's father arrived with a general. The criminal was taken away by order of the high-ranking official, and he never faced trial. He was completely let off the hook. Ismael encountered the golden boy he had knocked out again at the bar. The young man was once more getting drunk at the counter, loudly discussing something with other rich kids like himself. Upon seeing Ismael, he pouted dramatically. "Hey guys, look, this is the filthy cop who dared to hit me on the head. Let's show him who's right." They charged at him as a group, all at once. Someone hit Ismael from behind, and he lost consciousness. They kicked him mercilessly and for a long time, not to injure him severely, but to humiliate him more. Finally, they poured several glasses of sweet water over him and dumped a plate of fruit on his chest. Ismael's mother was a pharmacist. He didn't follow in her footsteps, but he had a good understanding of pills. Their house had everything. Ismael caught the golden boy and gave him a shot that caused his heart to stop. Later, the examination found not a single molecule of anything suspicious in his blood. Ismael's boss, who knew that the young man had been brutally beaten in the bar, called him in after the death of the rich kid and stunned him with the words, "I know this is your doing, but I won't say anything about my suspicions. You shouldn't be working in law enforcement, but I promise you won't be left to suffer. Submit your resignation report now, that's all I have to say." 2 weeks later, Ismael received his first file on his home computer. Since then, he had never been out of work. He didn't even know who was behind all of it. The weather on the day of the swimsuit competition almost ruined everything for the participants. No one expected that a heavy snow would fall from the dark, overcast sky in April. The organizers began to doubt whether this adventure would harm the tourists. But it turned out to be impossible to dissuade the guests of the ski resort from the adventure. Only 2 people refused to participate in the race. Ismael wasn't among them. He had already filled up on oatmeal with jam for breakfast that morning. He was teasing Salomon, who was lazily poking at his omelet on the plate. "Darling, I don't understand. Why have you suddenly lost your appetite? Don't worry. In my bright swimsuit, I'll be the most beautiful woman among those who dared to take on this daring ski race." Camila was also joyful in the hotel room. She changed her warm clothes several times that she would wear while going up the slope to the start mark. In the end, she settled on a thick sports suit and a bright blue jacket. She once again nudged Salomon. "When I'm left in my swimsuit, I'll fold these things into a bag and hand them over to you. I'll sit in the warm changing room while you hurry down. You'll meet your winner there and warm her up right away. After the competition, we'll head to the bar to celebrate this sparkling day with our favorite mulled wine." Salomon didn't argue with Camila today. He was scared. Visions flashed before his eyes. The still body of his wife in a black and turquoise swimsuit. He couldn't explain why these terrifying images lined up before him right now. He hadn't been given the exact date for the fulfillment of his cruel whim. But somehow he felt Camila was smiling at him for the last time. The cheerful descent began with enthusiasm. To her great surprise, Camila faced stiff competition. The crowd flowed down the slope not like a trickle but like a full-flowing river. Faces flashed by, colorful clothes, bright hats, and high-knitted socks. It was difficult to put on skis barefoot. Now Camila set a new task for herself. She completely forgot that she wanted to win. Right now, she craved emotions and impressions. Not to fall behind, to keep up with others, to soak in this fantastic drive so that Salomon could be proud of his beloved wife. Around one of the turns, an unexpected emptiness formed around Camila. All the competitors had spread out across the snow. There wasn't a single figure within a few meters. She wouldn't complain to anyone that she had slightly overestimated her strength and capabilities. An icy shower and flying through the snow in a swimsuit turned out to be different things. A slight tremor began to spread through her body. She was seriously freezing, and she hadn't even covered half the distance yet. "I can do it," the woman reassured herself. And suddenly, she felt a light sting in her neck. The sensation felt like a mosquito bite. The last thing she managed to think before losing consciousness was, "Wow, even in this cold spring, insects don't sleep around here. What kind of bug could bite me like that?" She didn't wake up for a long time. In some room, she lay on a couch, apparently under 2 blankets. She remembered nothing and didn't understand where she was. But at least the feeling of terrible cold had almost passed. Although her teeth still chattered treacherously. Her hands and feet were cold. Had something happened to her? Where was she? Was this a hospital? And what had happened before this? Had she caught a cold? Did she have a fever? A swarm of questions whirled in her head. Camila tried again to remember something, but only strange fragments surfaced. A lot of snow. A lot of bright colors. People rushing down somewhere. Salomon. She had a husband named Salomon. He must have been searching for her by now. How could she not think that he would worry? Camila was about to slide off the couch, but for some reason, her body wouldn't obey her. Then she gathered all her willpower and weakly piped up. "Help, is anyone there?" At the sound of her voice, the door opened. A huge dark figure appeared in the doorway. Camila couldn't make out anything. Something was also wrong with her eyes. The figure walked over to her couch and said to someone, "You woke up too early. The medication was supposed to work longer. You should sleep some more and warm up completely. I'll inject you with a sedative and a sleeping pill now." The man, Camila now definitely understood that it was indeed a man, disappeared from the room for a few moments and then reappeared. In his hands, she could barely make out a disposable syringe. She wanted to jerk away, to prevent him from giving her the injection, but she was too weak. A minute later, she slipped back into oblivion. Salomon, along with the other spectators, welcomed the participants of the competition who had completed the snowy course. Loud voices, laughter, and cheerful greetings filled the air. Everyone was inspired and happy. Friendship won in the competition as the contestants descended the slope in a large crowd at the finish line. Men threw light coats, warm jackets, and fluffy towels over their women's shoulders. Whatever supplies they had for such an occasion. The color festival was supposed to begin in half an hour. Everyone hurried to change clothes so they could join in the new exciting game. When the last tourists disappeared from his sight and the ski complex staff began gathering the equipment, Salomon donned a mask labeled Grieving Face and prepared for action. He clearly understood that Camila hadn't returned from the competition. His dream was starting to come true, but first, he had to masterfully play the role of the inconsolable husband. It was time to begin the first act of the play he had envisioned. The man put on a mask of extreme agitation and rushed to the resort employee with questions. "Please tell me, did anyone come off the ski course halfway? I can't find my wife. Were there any accidents during the event? Are there surveillance cameras along the ski trail? I'm going crazy. What could have happened to my Camila? I definitely saw her head down with everyone else. Why hasn't she come to the finish? The administration took Salomon's statement very seriously. The ski resort did not need bad publicity suggesting that it was unsafe to vacation there. A search operation began immediately. Soon, volunteer tourists joined the rescuers. A police unit arrived from the village. Officials were interviewing participants of the ski competition in swimsuits, and many confirmed that they had seen the woman from the photograph nearby in the last moments. She was wearing a very beautiful bright swimsuit in turquoise and black tones, the girls recalled. Where had she gone? Where had she disappeared to? Everyone struggled to answer. There had been a steady flow of skiers rushing down, excitement, and fun. No one was paying special attention to each other. It was supposed to be entertainment. No one expected anything bad to happen. Salomon acted as the most fervent seeker. He was getting in everyone's way, asking for a service dog to be brought to the scene that could find his missing wife. He was confused. The person who had connected him with those who could help eliminate Camila had convinced him that everything would be done at the highest level. After all, they had charged Salomon double for the work of their best employee. But if everything was done as it should be, then where had the body gone? His wife wouldn't be immediately declared dead if they didn't find her body. This was an annoying obstacle to his clear plan. By nightfall, the rescue operation was suspended. So far, the investigation had yielded nothing. They diligently questioned Salomon, asking whether he had quarreled with his wife, whether Camila was prone to cruel jokes, and whether she had any enemies. But he merely wiped tears from his eyes in response, insisting that he had the best wife in the world, who would never joke in such a cruel manner. On the third day of the search, when this story started to seem quite mystical, one of the volunteers from the village called everyone over. "Come here quickly. Look what I found." In the broad palm of his hand lay an elegant long earring with turquoise. Salomon, who rushed over, couldn't believe his eyes. The blue stone with black streaks seemed to have darkened and shriveled. Darkness had appeared on the silver metal. Salomon's heart sank. He was now absolutely sure that the order had been executed perfectly. The darkened earring was added to the case as material evidence of Camila's presence on the slope. However, they did not find her alive or dead even after 2 weeks. Salomon agreed to halt the search and flew back to his hometown. He accepted that he was neither a husband nor a widower now. He needed to be patient and wait out the necessary time to enjoy Camila's wealth without her presence. Salomon was a clever guy, perfectly playing the role of the inconsolable husband. He didn't indulge in parties, didn't bring women to their home. He kept a low profile and waited. According to the law, and Salomon was a decent lawyer, if Camila went missing under circumstances threatening her life, suggesting her death from an accident, she could be declared dead in court after 6 months. The will, which completely entrusted her husband Salomon with her assets, was drafted almost under his dictation. He convinced her that such documents were something a wealthy person should always have in a safe. All her belongings, in the event of her death, were to go to her nearest relatives, him, their daughter Linda, and her parents. Camila signed the will. Now all he had to do was put his plan into action. He hadn't fully figured out how to get rid of the girl later. 10 years was not an age for a struggle for power in the company and home. For now, she was still very young. He would arrange guardianship over her, let her continue her studies. Salomon did not see Camila's parents as an obstacle to his enrichment. He would simply renovate their house in the village and give them a bit of money for expenses. Let them continue digging in their garden. They wouldn't be able to aspire to more. Sometimes Salomon felt a bit annoyed that he would inherit with some burdens. But he wouldn't get rid of the girl and the old folks. He wasn't a monster. There would be enough from what Camila had earned through hard work. For now, he hadn't even started throwing out his wife's things. He packed all those slippers and outfits that annoyed him into a big box. In the back pantry, they wouldn't catch his eye. He would deal with it later. At heart, Salomon was not a foolish guy. He took control of the company, announcing to the employees that until all circumstances and consequences were clarified, no one would be fired. Everything would continue to operate as it had. After mourning the good housekeeper, the employees returned to their duties. The client base was established, the machinery could keep running. Life always goes on. As we know, there are no irreplaceable people. Ismael stood by the stove, boiling chicken broth for Camila. He knew for sure that it would be the best restorative food when she regained consciousness. How could she think of skiing in a swimsuit without any prior training? Such experiments were better after a couple of rehearsals, checking one's abilities. She was an extraordinary woman. She built such a large business from scratch. Alone, without the help of a man by her side. Ismael liked such daring women. Not just superficial beauties who only knew how to pose in front of a mirror, but personalities. Brave and decisive. He wouldn't be able to fulfill the order. And he knew that he would now be punished. This was the first failure in his work history. Behind him, there was a rustle, and he instantly tensed up, like a predator preparing to pounce. He turned softly and silently. Camila stood in the kitchen doorway, her body wrapped in one of the blankets. Her blue eyes were full of determination. She charged straight into battle. "Can I ask where my clothes are?" Ismael smiled. "If you're referring to your swimsuit and knee-highs, I washed and dried them. Would you like to wear them?" Camila was taken aback. What was happening? How had she ended up in this house without even any clothes? Who was this man? The last question that crossed her mind, she immediately voiced. "Please explain who you are and by what right you are keeping me here. Do you think I won't be able to find a way to deal with you? You're mistaken. Your husband hired me to get rid of you," Ismael bluntly told her. Camila froze. Her face revealed that a thought process was occurring in her mind. Contradictory emotions began to show on her face. Ismael silently applauded her. What willpower! She wasn't throwing a fit, wasn't attacking him, and didn't immediately deny this shocking revelation. After a couple of minutes, Camila quietly spoke. "Do you have proof of your words?" Ismael nodded silently and then presented Camila with an ultimatum. "I will provide you with proof of what I said, but first, you need to get dressed and drink the broth I made for you. Your condition yesterday was not ideal. You need to recover and regain your strength." Carefully studying the file on Salomon, she said, "It can't be." Camila withdrew into herself. It hurt so much that there wouldn't even be any words in a list of necessary epithets to define her state. Ismael tried not to disturb her, letting her process everything. She just couldn't understand how this could be. Salomon had never loved her, but he had played the role of the perfect husband so skillfully. Who could she trust in this world then? It turned out we were all alone. Don't let anyone close, and then you won't get burned in your heart. A couple of weeks later, Camila had completely settled into the secluded house that Ismael had rented for his operation. The money for Camila had already started coming into his account. But the man knew that his bosses weren't fools. If Camila decided to rise from the dead, which was likely, he wouldn't be in a good position. He could become a target for someone among his colleagues. He didn't yet know if it was possible to disappear from such a world. He was ready to give everything he had saved and earned over the years for this woman. But would she want to be with someone like him? Camila wasn't thinking about romantic matters at all. Although, she did come to one conclusion for herself: never trust any man again. She clarified her so-called relationship with Ismael the very next day after she regained consciousness, without any ceremonies. "I still can't understand your intentions in this whole story. What's your personal interest? Do you hope that I'll pay you more than what you were promised for me? I have nothing now. I'm missing, dead, disappeared, even if I haven't been declared so yet. I don't even know how all of this will end for both of us," the man honestly replied. "If I were you, I wouldn't rush to your husband to punish him right now. Your return needs to be staged at the highest level. I remember some wise guy once said, the main thing is the ability to hold the pause. The better the actor, the longer his pauses. That's from the novel The Theater. Camila immediately understood. Exactly. Your Salomon turned out to be quite the actor in this family play. Now it's your turn. And it should be as impactful as possible. Camila was restless. She didn't know what to come up with. Then she asked Ismael an unexpected question. Can you make documents for me under another name? I want to fly to my daughter. There, I'll heal my emotional wounds and prepare for my meeting with Salomon. Oh, one more detail. At home, in my office, there's a hidden stash. It contains a substantial amount of money in euros and dollars. I used to play a bit with the exchange rates of these two capricious currencies. With my economic intuition, I was able to make some profit. The amount isn't so great, so Salomon never even mentioned it. It just sits there. Right now, that money will be enough for my needs. Ismael smirked. Not only am I not a noble knight, but you're also pushing me toward theft? What a turn of events. Camila smiled for some reason. She was confident that this man would handle everything precisely, without mistakes. How curious the twists of fate were. Right now, Ismael was probably the only ally in her situation. She felt protected around him, something she had never experienced with Fidel or Salomon. A week later, Ismael brought Camila the money and a new passport. Yes. This man knew how to surprise. 3 days later, Camila was already admiring the cathedral in Zurich and cherishing her daughter. Linda was on cloud nine that this time her mom was visiting for a long time. Soon she would be celebrating her 11th birthday, so Camila easily explained her sudden visit to her daughter. The woman was immensely surprised that Salomon hadn't told the girl about her disappearance and the possible death of her mother. What kind of person was he? To abandon his wife's daughter during such a difficult time? Not to explain anything? To hide like an ostrich with his head in the sand, seemingly waiting for the judicial authorities to officially announce Camila's death? 10 days later, Ismael joined Camila, bringing her an amazing gift, her lost earring with turquoise. It was vibrant again, as if the jewelry could be happy too. How he managed to retrieve the trinket, which was designated as evidence, was known only to God. He had never told anyone about the secrets of his criminal expertise. All of this felt a bit bitter. They both understood that Ismael had taken a risk for Camila, but they never discussed it. Camila suddenly realized that she had broken the promise she made to herself. She had begun to believe again. She believed in a man she hardly knew, who replaced words with actions. He outlined the situation clearly, found ways out, and acted. Camila had never encountered such a breed of man before. It was new to her. Ismael told her that Salomon was lying low, clearly waiting for his wife to be declared deceased so he could warm his hands over her inheritance. Inside, Camila was torn by contradictions. If she were to go all in, she would have to give Ismael up completely. That would mean both a professional and personal collapse for him. But if she chose to let things slide, quietly return to her life, fabricating some plausible story about her disappearance, Salomon would escape punishment. He might be left with nothing, but still. What should she do? Whose side should she take? Sometimes it seemed to Camila that she wasn't living this situation but rather watching it unfold from the sidelines, like a gripping series whose second season hadn't yet been made, and whose first season ended in uncertainty. She couldn't quite grasp what she thought of Ismael. She didn't fully believe that he was truly a mercenary. They don't let anyone into their lives, do they? At least, that's what detective novels and movies suggest. Yet here was a normal, I would even say pleasant and intelligent man, unflappable and not very talkative. And she found that appealing. Camila, Ismael, and Linda were strolling through a picturesque resort. It was sunny, as it usually was at the resort. Camila had been there on the ski slopes with Salomon. The thought crossed her mind again, my husband is a magnificent actor. One time, in a little restaurant, they had seen an informal party with local show business stars. Someone was celebrating their birthday in a small circle. Camila spotted her favorite singer at a table. If only I could get my idol's autograph. I love listening to his songs. Without really hearing her, Salomon vanished. 5 minutes later, he reappeared with a fan of promotional leaflets borrowed from a waiter. Each piece of paper bore the autograph she had longed for. Did Salomon do all of this just to later get rid of her and take her money? Incredible. The day before their departure, Ismael took Camila and her daughter to a hill overlooking the waterfall. After a stroll through the medieval castle, they spent a long time in a local restaurant and then went souvenir shopping. Camila trailed behind Ismael like a shadow, thinking, well, what a group we've assembled, a mercenary, a college student, and a high-ranking cleaning lady who traded her mop for a business suit. That evening, Camila made her choice. She was now ready to confront Salomon. Salomon was triumphant. He hadn't expected such a result even in his wildest dreams. The court had just officially declared Camila deceased. The date was set for the day she hadn't returned from the ski race at the festival. It couldn't be better. Now he could go to the notary and finally hear the will. He had already arranged for little Linda and Camila's parents not to be present at this procedure. He would inform them of everything later. In the notary's office, Salomon was alone, but the notary still hadn't started the reading of the will. It was as if he were waiting for someone or something, but the event or person was delayed. When the wait became artificially prolonged, Salomon once again put on his mask of sorrow and, in a voice that was almost weeping, said to the notary, "You are hurting me so much. My wife was just declared deceased yesterday. It's all over. I have no hope left. But I've decided to endure this formality of reading the will as it's required. What are we waiting for? Do you want to amplify my grief even more? To make me feel the tragedy of the moment all over again?" He didn't hear how the door behind him opened almost silently and a woman entered the room. But he clearly recognized her loud, prolonged applause and voice. "My God, Salomon, I had no idea you were such an actor. Just don't faint from the shock of seeing me back from the dead. Someone had to draw the curtain on this story, so why not its main character?" What verb could best describe Salomon's state? Any would do. He was dumbfounded, paralyzed, stunned, knocked down, shocked. Camila was alive. Meanwhile, his wife continued, "It's time for you to take off the mask, my boy. Only a naive child like you could think I wouldn't see through your plans. I intentionally delayed my appearance. I wanted to watch how you would reach out your greedy hands into my possessions. How you would behave, what you would do." Camila triumphantly walked over to the table, took the wool from the notary, and tore it into tiny pieces. "I will draft new documents, Salomon. And your name will not be in them. I didn't tell you the most important thing. I'm letting you go. Don't you dare come close to my home and defile it with your presence. I won't send you to prison. I'll just leave you poor again. And if I ever find out that you've latched onto some other woman, I will be watching your life. And that is worse than prison, dear. That will be my punishment for you. Now get out." Salomon rose from the table. He was crushed, defeated. Sometimes, moral death is far worse than physical death. He understood that ahead of him lay emptiness and oblivion. Ismael was waiting for Camila outside the office building. He didn't accompany her to the notary's office, thinking he would be out of place there. When the woman came out, he approached her, unsure of what to do next. Were they saying goodbye forever, or would they see each other again? He couldn't deceive himself. He had long understood that he loved her. For the first time in his life, truly. He didn't care whether she had money or not. He just wanted her to allow him to be close. He would earn money again, but not in the way he had done before. Camila walked across the street with a brisk step. She sat next to Ismael on a bench. She looked into his eyes. "Thank you for everything. You have become a true, reliable friend to me." He turned to her and pleaded, "Please wait for me. I'll settle all my debts at work and come back to you. You've become everything to me during this time." Camila smiled warmly. She took his head, pulled him close, and kissed him. Go, and make sure to come back. I will wait.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.